Top 5 things we must see in the future of college football, and I realize now I did leave collective bargaining out of this. So I would say if there's a sixth, collective bargaining is probably
where would that
be on the table. It's probably it's got to be in there somewhere in the top 5 because I don't know where, but it's just heading down the road of where that's the most logical solution.
It really is. I mean, that's why, I've been kind of not pounding the table on that, but I've been mentioning it now, I think, almost every show of being if that's the way to kind of answer a lot of the questions, and let's go for it. And I don't know what the fallout from that would be in terms of the university and what that would cost them. And I know there would be many that would throw their hands up like, oh, there's no way. But, I mean, if that's the way to settle things down, then that's what you got to do.
Yeah. But anyway, we go into the actual top 5 right now. Number 5, balance amongst the A5 conferences. Now, I want balance across the board, but the A5s have to have some sort of, I'm not talking about necessarily competitive balance because we'll get to what I think will balance that out later on. I'm talking about balance in the, you can't just let one of them or two of them tell you everybody what they're doing. They need unity, balance, some sort of step forward where it's not shut up and just let us do this. They need.
All right. Explain that again.
So right now, I mean, there's no like the SEC is driving this ship. The Big Ten can say that they have a say, and they probably do, but the SEC is driving this ship completely.
Okay, well, what does that have to do with the A5s?
The autonomy.
He's saying
5.
that you need the Big 12's voice to matter as much as the SEC's.
Yeah.
No, you're right. They should all have the same voice, and maybe that would help balance everything else. Okay.
Well, and I think, too, there's just differences in leadership. I mean, Bob Bowlesby was fine in some cases. He was good in others, and he was downright bad in other ways. And I think the thing that you see with Kevin Warren is whether or not you agree or disagree with his thoughts. I mean, he's clearly got a plan that he's executing. And Kliavkoff seems to have a plan right now for the Pac-12. And obviously, Sankey and the SEC, I mean, they've had a whole transition without even so much as a hiccup. It seems like they've just gotten even stronger. So, I mean, it does feel, though, like, Warren's got a louder voice than whoever the Big 12 guy is going to be. And whoever that person, man, woman, whatever, that comes in, you just hope if you're a Big 12 fan that they, can saddle up and talk to the other 4. But it does feel like there's like 2 of those guys that are really doing most of the talking.
Yeah, which also that would help for, let's not do what's just good for the SEC and everybody else in the Big Ten,
right,
and everybody else scrambles to figure it out. What's good for the whole of college football, even if the SEC has to give up a couple $1 million a year. If it works out better for them, then in the long term, they'll see that money again. It's just, if you look at what's good for me in the short term and not in the long term for everybody, then you're going to lose money eventually.
I'm going to say this, and I've said it 1,000 times. The National Football League is the most powerful sport in America. I know other sports are very popular. If those 32 teams can understand the best is who the weakest link is, has to be strong, then why can't college football?
Because there are
80 more teams.
There are 80 more teams and less money.
Yeah.
The NFL makes way more money, and they have 32 teams to slice it through, whereas you're talking about not as much money and then add 80 more schools. And why should Alabama feel like they should be making the same amount of money as Kansas?
Well, they do when it comes to the television national contract. They do. The college football playoff distributes all of that equally, right? They do. Every conference gets it. The problem is the difference, not the problem. The difference is each conference also has their own revenue stream based on popularity and value.
You would think that there's a way to help out, but then we get around to like a term like subsidize, and I just don't see any college athletics leader taking money out of their own pocket to help like Forest U, maintain their football team. They have no motivation to do so other than the spirit of the game. And I know I'm big on talking about the spirit of the game, but ultimately it does come back to money. And the ACC, SEC, they're not going to float another conference just because they're making much.
I do like the idea of those A5 conferences negotiating the television deal together. That to me makes a lot of sense because, again, we like football. And I think that maybe this is where the network execs are kind of losing it. We like football for the most part as college football fans. Yeah, we like our own team. We like our own area. But we like it because it's this big, gigantic national sport.
I grew up in a time, and I know this is a long, long time ago, but the regional rivalries were a big deal. I love watching every damn one of them. And right now, I don't know how many of those I watch.
Yeah. All right, we got to get to number 4 here. We've got number 5 for conference stability. When I say that, that's different than what I just said. Let's not see much more movement within the conferences. Let's get to something and stay there for a good long while. More than a decade.
But the same people who are greedy here too.
Yeah, I know, but that's what we need to see.
I mean, that could happen if the SEC would not go and talk to Texas and Oklahoma or vice versa, and that would happen if you didn't have rumors of, oh my gosh, what are Oregon and USC and even potentially Washington going to do in a scenario where maybe the Pac-12's falling behind. But yeah, having some stability would certainly help more than just a select few in this case. And the Big 12, even though they're back to full strength and actually will be bigger than they have been in quite some time. I mean, there's still plenty of questions that linger there as well because of TV money and what that may look like.
Yeah. Number 3, NIL guardrails. And this might be collective bargaining, really, if you put that in there, maybe switch out guardrails with collective bargaining. Whatever's going to make it, equitable across the schools as much as it could be, then that's what needs to be happening. Plus, just some understanding of what's really, what this is really for. And that way everybody can make their money. And it's not necessarily, I can be sitting in my room and in Manhattan, Kansas, and get a phone call and be like, hey, how about you come to Knoxville, Tennessee with...
How much would this be limited if they just tightened up the transfer portal? And I know there's going to be waivers because of lawsuits. Everything's about lawsuits. But how much would this have been tightened up if they would have allowed the transfer or kept the transfer rule the way it was with graduate transfers only?
It would clean up a lot of it because guys are not going to sit out a year, especially if you're telling them they're also going to get paid. While doing so, what coaches want to do that necessarily? Where they've got a guy on the books for $3 million, and not quite that. Let's say $30,000. Now that might be a drop in the bucket, but yeah, you eventually want that wide receiver, but that wide receiver's not going to necessarily sit around and wait on that.
Yeah. It's like COVID allowed every damn.
Everything to just fly.
Not just in athletics, but everywhere else.
It did.
Yeah.
Number 2, real governance.
Okay, this is
real.
Can we get this for just the world too?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Governance.
Yeah.
Well, let's just everybody.
Go
I don't
get
know.
Moglia.
But the thing about governance is the people who seem to want these jobs are not the people who are necessarily qualified for them, because the people who are qualified for governing jobs are too smart for it and think this is too much of a headache. So they just go into something else.
AA game. I guess maybe somebody says that on occasion, but normally it's just college basketball game or college football game or whatever. I memean, and when you hear those words, it's typically never for a good reason. It's always like, oh, who are they investing? What penalties are they levying now? And I mean, I think that they're going to get a makeover without even having to move their fingers, because I don't think they're going to be in control of that makeover. But you would like to have some better leadership. For example, if somebody were to come to this hypothetical leadership a few years ago and say, or come to them right now and say, like, hey, there's this NIL thing rolling down the tracks. Maybe it would be a good idea if we just started, kind of handing out a little bit of money here and there, and, people can sell their jerseys with their names on it, and we can, do all those things. Maybe let's just do that and get ahead of the curve. No, instead, let's just sit on it and say this money is ours, and then just gobble it all up and then act shocked when we have to go pay tens of millions of dollars to lawyers to lose a losing case.
Quick nerd reference. The NCAA is like Gollum holding on to the ring.
They really are.
And then you just die in the lava. I mean, that's what happens.
But no, they need real like leadership that okay, when something happens, who's the person? Who's that person? Who's the person that's going to make the final call? Who's the person that's going to make the call that's in the best interest of people involved? And there has not been a leader like that in a really long time.
Yeah. And number 1, an expanded playoff. This changes so many things.
It would change a lot of things.
Like I said, it's not a cure-all, but it's a cure a lot. Like it's
a medicine. It would help. It would help those who wonder if they're still a part of it or will be. It would allow other conferences to have more strength than they have now. It would still allow the SEC or whoever else to have a lot of teams in it, but it would give everybody a seat at the table or a possibility to have a seat by earning it at a table.
Like I said, man, Baylor had near 3 opportunities they could have been in the college football playoff, and a couple of those were out of their control. But, I mean, they could have if there was at least just even 8 teams. And you can think of all the non-Alabama, non-Ohio State, non-Oklahoma, non-schools like that. They were all – I mean, even A&M would have been in a playoff. It wouldn't be just the smaller schools that don't get – get in there, I mean, there would be other teams that would be knocking on the door as well that would have an opportunity if they just finished around that top 10 mark. And so I think there's way more good that would come from an expanded playoff. That would be healthier for the sport. But those who already have that in their palms, I don't know that they want to let that go, that exclusivity. So we'll see. But I just think it's got to be a matter of time before they open this thing up a little bit.